Ego dissolution. Some would call it a dramatic breakdown of one's sense of self, but it's more complex than that. Today, on the Elements of Science, we tackle this curious phenomenon, often discussed in the context of meditation or psychedelic drugs. Ego dissolution, sometimes called ego death, can be dramatic, but here's a more accurate description. It is a particular set of alterations in self-experience, in which the sense of being an individual that is distinct from the environment and others becomes blurred, or indeed, in some cases, abolished completely.
Your sense of self is seemingly always around, so it can be hard to imagine consciousness without it. But let's examine the self in more detail. Individuals are self-conscious when they experience themselves as the subject of action and perception. You have representations of yourself that are integrated into your conscious experience. This self-consciousness is multidimensional. It encompasses your bodily senses, the stories you believe about yourself, your agency to act in the world, and your relationships to others. Let's examine these first two. Narrative self-consciousness includes self-related thoughts, like thinking about your past or planning for your future. It's the stories you believe and tell about yourself, who you think you are, your personality traits, what you like and dislike, and so on. Narrative self-consciousness is all about you. But self-consciousness isn't just all in your head, it's also in your body. That's this embodied self-consciousness. Part of it is the feeling that your body belongs to you and is separate from everything else around it. We experience this through our senses, movement, and interoception, or the signals that come from within the body. Embodied self-consciousness is also your ability to locate your body in space so that you can act on objects in your environment. Without the body, our self-experience would be radically different from what we know. Now, back to ego dissolution. The loss of self can manifest as a loss of the bodily self, a sense of becoming one with the surrounding environment, unable to distinguish yourself from it. And it could also mean the loss of the narrative self, meaning that your identity, history, and self-related thoughts temporarily disappear. If this sounds bizarre and terrifying, it can be, but not necessarily. Blissful experiences of ego dissolution are one potential outcome of deep meditation, although they can require intense and long practice. And psychedelic drugs are also famous for reliably shutting down the self, at high enough doses, that is. This can be blissful and highly meaningful too, but especially if someone isn't in a supportive environment, it can also turn frightening. So when researchers work with psychedelics, they make sure to create a safe environment and prepare people properly. Under these conditions, ego dissolution may even have a positive impact on therapeutic outcomes. So, odd as it may seem, it's possible to experience consciousness without you. Meditation and psychedelics are two methods that may induce ego dissolution. And it's not only fascinating that the brain can produce such an experience at all, but it's also an experience that can greatly impact people. For more information on ego dissolution, you can explore these references. And if you've had an experience of ego dissolution and would like help processing it, you might want to check out our psychedelic integration programs, Beyond Experience and Footsteps Online. Links are in the description. This has been The Elements of Science. I'm Abigail Calder from the Mind Academy, and this presentation was made by Selena Hoyza, also from the Mind Academy. I'll see you and your sense of self next time on The Elements of Science.